You're listening to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by Referral Mortgages and Blue Panda Realty, with your hosts, Paul Stevenson, David Warren, and Greg Campbell. Let's see what's going on in the world of real estate in our nation's capital.
Hello, good morning, good day. The Ottawa Real Estate Podcast. We are back in business. It's that time of the week, it's that time of the day. David, it's just you and I today. No Greg. Two-thirds is here. Two-thirds. We're 66% there today. My name is Paul Stevenson. I am one of the hosts of the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, and I'm also an owner and a mortgage agent at Referral Mortgages. I'm here with David Warren. He is my business partner. He's also an owner and a mortgage agent at Referral Mortgages. Greg Campbell could not be with us here today. Greg is a partner and a realtor at Blue Panda Realty. All of us are located in Ottawa. Ottawa is a real headline grabber right now. There's going to be a few babies named Ottawa, I would imagine, in the world after the last few months, last few years. But Dave, how was the week? How are you doing? And you're not in Ottawa, so what's going on down there?
No, but I will say, to your point of Ottawa being in the headlines, I mean, I'm in Florida still right now, but everyone here knows about Ottawa. It runs it's in the headlines on all the news channels on a regular basis. It's pretty funny. Most people didn't know down here where Ottawa was, or that it was even in Canada, and now they do.
It was kind of funny. Toronto. So you're in Canada? You must be near Toronto. It's like, yeah,
it's always a proximity to Toronto. It's either Toronto or Vancouver. What's the proximity where you live to there? But it's been good. Been a good week. Still pretty busy with my end from real estate and obviously with the brokerage, but it's a good weekend. Kind of just relaxed down here. Went to the pool, brought our newborn Oliver, brought him swimming for the first time, sat him in the water. It's pretty hilarious. It's been good. How about yourself? I know you're
a virgin martini in his hand, probably.
Right? Yes. Actually, we got a nice photo of his Formula on ice beside my beer on ice.
That's hilarious. Ottawa's good. I mean, the real estate market here feels like the last week it's kind of, I don't want to say balanced out, but I feel like there wasn't as much movement over the last 7 days. Now, Greg would have stats, obviously. We'll catch up on that next week. But I would say, at least from the leads I've seen, a lot more questions about pre-approvals, not as many transactions actually happening. Now, that could just be my kind of small subsect, but that's kind of what I've seen over the last 7 days. And I think that kind of ties in with what we were saying, that, last year, at least February, kind of mid-February to end of February, kind of bounced out. And then more homes came on the market kind of early March. So I think we're kind of in that same cycle right now, that people are kind of readjusting going into the spring. And then I think, in the coming weeks, we should see more listings, a more balanced market, and hopefully prices can balance out a bit from where they are. And I think the biggest thing right now is that prices are just kind of all over the place, right? You get some they're selling at asking, some they're selling for 150 over. It'd be very challenging as a buyer right now, I'd imagine, to be out in the market.
Yeah, for sure. It's everyone I've been speaking to, it's exactly that. A lot of pre-approvals, looking at rate locks, because obviously rates are in the news, and Bank of Canada's increase on the horizon next week. But also, I was speaking to a woman yesterday that they're holding off listing. They bought a place in Orleans. Again, price is the price they paid is still boggles my mind. But they're waiting. They live downtown. They're waiting till the protest is all cleared and before they list. Because right now, there's people can't access, and that's affecting. And somebody else listed their place 2 weeks ago, middle of a protest, and they had what would have been, they're in the Riverside South, like more towards the Glebe, and they only had 9 showings because people were afraid of coming down. So it definitely affected their sale price and affected their the activity on their place. For this family that's going to list, they're in the Golden Triangle, just off Elgin, and so they're going to wait until everything's cleared out, because there's no point listing right now. People can't come down, things like that. So that is certainly having an impact in the downtown core for anyone listing. So I feel for those that are trying to list on a or needing to sell on a whim because they bought something quickly or expeditedly. Yeah, I mean that's certainly kind of throws a wrench into things as well. Anyone that was planning on listing in Centertown or downtown core.
Yeah, I mean maybe that's why I'm thinking it's slowed too. Maybe it's just there's kind of been that ominous kind of feeling lingering across the city for the last 7 days that people are just kind of waiting to see what happens and move forward after that, which it seems like we're there. So that's good news. The other thing that, Dave, you and I do these kind of webinars usually every 2 weeks for first time home buyers. And one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up today is around immigration and the amount of immigration we've been seeing into Canada, but also into Ontario, and that driving prices up and so on. One of the questions we get asked often in these webinars is, as someone who's new to Canada or recently immigrated to Canada, like what are their options for financing? And secondly, like, do we know what sort of numbers we're looking at as far as like actual like bodies moving into Canada and kind of immigrating to Canada? So I know there was an article that you had mentioned to me before we came on air. If you wanted to touch on that quickly.
Yeah, it was for sure. So, I know you mentioned the first time homebuyer webinars that we do. So for context, we do them every 2 weeks and it's typically 60 to 120 people on, and it's actually all typically new to Canada individuals. And so it is pretty telling as far as what that, that there is such a strong desire for people that have newly immigrated to buy a home. And this was an interesting article that I found in the Globe and Mail actually just this morning that the Toronto Real Estate Board had hired Ipsos to do a survey to find out what the mentality is or the desire of new immigrants to purchase a home. And so they did a sample of 1,000 potential home buyers and 2,500 homeowners. And they found that their immigrant respondents living in Toronto, 49% own a home after being here less than 5 years. So people coming to Canada within less than 5 years have bought a home in one of Canada's most expensive markets, being Toronto. I think that's really telling to how, people always have this mentality that people, immigrating to a new country, are struggling, going to be renting for a long period of time and maybe, lower income housing or whatever it may be. And certainly what I found doing these webinars, and we've been doing them for probably about a year now, and speaking to a lot of these individuals, they're very well educated, very well funded, coming here with a lot of savings from other countries and very well educated, getting great jobs right out the gate or working multiple jobs, like 2 full-time jobs to really get ahead and expedite their savings and kind of fall into this category of these 49% buying within 5 years. I'm sure you kind of see it as well with those that you speak with. And it is really, it's really interesting, kind of that mentality and desire to be a homeowner, even though prices are going up and kind of seeing that escalation in prices. But it was, overall, of that 1,000 potential homeowners, home buyers, and 2,500 homeowners, 38% of homeowner respondents had immigrated to Canada. Of those, 50% had immigrated to Canada in more than 21 years, 23% between 10 and 20 years, and 20% moved here in the last 10 years. So, it really is a big percentage. 33% of them said they want to buy a home, compared to 26% of the general population saying that. So you have a larger population or larger percentage saying they actually want to buy a home than the general population. These are pretty large numbers. So it's, really when we talk about, immigration to Canada and to Ottawa, when we're talking about home prices and really the supply not keeping up with demand, and over the past couple of years, really immigration having been stalled, this is, as we open up the borders again, people don't think that this is going to be as big a driving factor to home prices, but it is. I mean, these stats and these types of surveys in the most expensive or one of the most expensive markets in Canada is telling that, even within Canada, within Ottawa, how much immigration drives that price. You have a disproportionate desire of new immigrants to purchase a home compared to the general population that are here. And as well, those moving here within 5 years, 50% in buying a home. I mean, that's really telling to how how that dictates and really, pushes the market, if you will.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there too, as well, when you said about the, I don't want to say it's a stigma, but kind of that mentality. People hear about their great grandparents or their grandparents coming here with, $20 in their pocket. And I think that's people's perception of, oh, someone's immigrated here. They're scraping by. Like you said, most of the people we talk to, like you said, are extremely affluent, extremely educated. They're coming here with, their life savings basically, and reestablishing their life in Canada, as opposed to just, scraping by or coming into Canada, looking for some sort of assistance or anything. Like a lot of.
Oh, little technical difficulties.
Hello, lost my power there. Yeah, a lot of the people that we talk to that are kind of using, we'll get into the new to Canada program, but a lot of the people that are on these webinars, like you said, they have like ample savings, they have income, they have like they're established in their life. They're not kind of early in their life cycle as far as home buying. So I think there is that kind of preconception that people think if someone is immigrating here, it's still that same story from maybe 2 or 3 generations ago, where we have friends that their families came over, literally, escaped to potentially a war-torn country, came here when they were babies, with their parents had little to no money, and they've made a living for themselves here. And those are kind of the stories from when we were kids. It's different now, right? Immigration is completely different. Obviously, Canada has certain regulations and rules that are required to obviously immigrate to Canada. And I think there is still that general misconception of people thinking that people immigrating to Canada won't be able to buy a home. And in fact, it's actually, like you said, the opposite. There's actually a very high percentage of them that would qualify to buy a home, and that is actually driving, in some cases, the prices up, because they are qualified buyers that can buy these expensive homes.
Yeah, I mean, people in a lot of cases, one big aspect that's different from generations past, like you said, is technology, computer programming, development. People immigrating here, that knowledge base of tech and us in Canada having a very strong tech sector, they're able to move here and supplant themselves with a great paying job, because they are software developers, software engineers, computer programmers, and all of that knowledge base translates no matter what country you're in, and they're able to move here or retain the job that they had in other countries. I mean, I talk to people all the time that they still have their jobs from, that they work for a UK company, a company based out of Dubai, out of the US, out of India, and they're just moving here to move their families for whatever that reason may be, but they're still retaining that previous job, working remotely, or shifting to, from that job over in the UK or India or Dubai, like I said, to a Shopify or something more local, and it's translating into immediately high paying jobs. And so I think there's, like you said, that like we touched on, that huge misconception. That's not really the case anymore. And these statistics are really kind of showing that. And they are such, it is a really big driving factor. And you kind of mentioned it, really for the new to Canada programs that we talk about on an ongoing basis that a lot of people aren't aware of, is you can buy a home with as little as 5% down on a work permit, being here less than 2 years, permanent residency, whatever it may be. You don't need to be a Canadian citizen to purchase a home with as little as 5% down. There are a lot of programs that are designed for you, even if you don't have established credit. There's ways in which we can use alternative means, whether that's, proof from your landlord that you've been paying rent on a consistent basis for a year, a letter from them. We were talking to a lender this past week that said that they'll even help reconstruct alternative credit, showing that proof that you've been paying your Netflix account on time over the past year, things like that. So there are ways in which, we can build that established credit, or even if it's, haven't even been here a year, we can look at an international credit bureau, or, a letter from your home, your bank back home stating that you're in good standing, things like that. So for those of you that might be new to Canada finding this, episode, do not be dismayed that you're having to wait or thinking you have to wait until you're a citizen or, many years to have established credit. There are programs designed specifically for you that can help you kind of get into the market sooner rather than later.
We should say too, for those webinars, although they're not focused around new to Canada, that's just kind of what we're finding from the people that are participating. But anyone who is listening, if you wanted to participate in one of those webinars, by all means, just send Dave and I a message or an email, and we can get you registered for that. The other thing I was thinking, Dave, is I'd be interested to know, and I'm sure they have the statistics, but I just don't have them in front of me. I know to Ontario, from outside of Canada, the immigration to the province was roughly around 150,000 last year. I wonder how many of those people, immigrated from, let's say, out of province, but potentially may have just immigrated to Canada to that other province, within the last, say, 6 months or so. Like, I wonder how many people are kind of, landing in, say, out east on the East Coast or in Vancouver and then immigrating to Toronto or Ottawa after the fact, because I don't think many people fly kind of directly into Ottawa, but we have seen a large immigration from other provinces to Ontario. And that's also what's driving the prices up here more than other areas in the country. So I'd be interested to see how many people are immigrating to Canada and then just kind of transitioning right to Ottawa or Toronto immediately afterwards.
Well, Paul, that'll be an answer for another week. Definitely do not know that.
We'll cover that next year.
Yeah, I mean, to your point though of from an immigration standpoint, like you kind of touched on, there are different cities and different provinces within the country that kind of rotate through that, depending on the program or where, for a period of time, people are immigrating, that they flow through certain cities for a period of time, or that if they're coming from a specific country and there's already an established group of, from that country, that they'll, have them land in a specific city. And so a lot of times, and it's come up recently, and you and I were chatting about it. Newfoundland, St. John's, Newfoundland is a big one. Landing there and then moving from there elsewhere. But then you also, that's why also you have a larger pocket of new immigrants within some of these cities as well. Like, St. John's, Newfoundland, it kind of seems, well, why the heck would they move out there? A lot of times that's the landing spot, and then they migrate within the country. But I don't know what those statistics look like. I know from what that's going to be going forward, and hopefully maybe some listeners as well that might be able to chime in with that might work for the federal government or know those numbers of what it's projected to be within over 2022 as we open up the borders, or know over the past year how many have migrated here. But I know out east, I've got an old university good buddy of mine who I talk to daily. He's a realtor in Fredericton, Jeremy Deering. If you're looking to migrate out east, he's a great realtor out there.
Shout out to Jeremy.
But he's seen a huge migration from Ontario, from larger cities. We were talking about last week of people coming from Toronto and Vancouver, seeing Ottawa as a cheaper market, and then the same being going from Ottawa or some of these other cities out east. And he's getting a lot of buyers from outside the province, buying over Zoom, buying these homes, and then not stepping foot in them until they've actually moved out there, whether that's for retirement or because they're able to work remotely. And so it's kind of, there's been that trickle down effect as well of to some of these smaller cities. So they're seeing huge rise in prices as well because of that. To us, when you see those prices, the average home price there of a detached being like, 240,000 or 220,000, it's like shocking to us. But again, but they've seen those prices rise from an average of like, probably 170 over the past year to be in that. But to kind of do have that trickle down. But yeah, to that point, there is a huge migration between the country.
Yeah. Thanks for correcting too. I think I said they would immigrate to Ontario. They would be migrating if once they're in the country. So thank you for correcting me on that. I remember seeing some of Jeremy's stories too out east, where he posts like on his Instagram or wherever about doing these walkthroughs to these home, beautiful hot tub, pool, brand new kitchen, everything's like sparkling, and then he price is like $289. It's like, what? What are you talking about? This is like a year ago, just mind blowing. I'm like, dude, this can't be true. He's like, yeah, waterfront too. I forgot to mention, comes with sea-doos, comes with boat. Yeah. You're like, what is happening? What world is that? It's pretty wild to see, but it's that's it. That's all I got on that. The other thing you wanted to talk about, Dave, was we were talking about how, kind of going back to the supply issue, there's so many things that factor into that. And it seems like every week we have a new kind of, asterisks, I guess, beside what's impacting home prices and what's impacting supply and so on. One of the things that we were talking about is people willing to basically have a mortgage longer. Like, in our parents' generation or our grandparents, the goal was always, you get a mortgage, you want to pay that off as fast as possible. Now it seems that the mindset of the homeowner today is kind of, well, now I have this equity built up. Maybe I can, reinvest that equity. Or, I know before, like the idea of a second mortgage or refinancing was considered like a failure. Like, what, you're refinancing? You must have some real financial issues. If you have to get a second mortgage, that was kind of seen as, like really negative, right? Like you're in a bad place if you got to do that. Now it's seen as almost like an investment tool where people are purposely pulling equity, purposely getting second mortgages, purposely refinancing to invest in the market or other property or what have you, right? So what, I guess, have you been seeing? I know there was an article as well that you kind of brought up, and wondering if you want to touch on that as well.
For sure. I mean, I was joking before we came on air. It's like the ride or die demographic now of kind of willing to ride out that mortgage their entire life. And I, what the article's touching on, and just as you mentioned, back in the day when interest rates were 18, 22, 25%, that there was, it was paid off, and the driven home mentality was, get a good job, pay off your mortgage, no debt, just to hammer down that mortgage and be debt free. And it's kind of changed and shifted where when you're getting mortgages at 3%, that people are willing and fine with having a mortgage their entire life, and paying 3% for it and reinvesting it elsewhere. And so there's this shift in I think also financial literacy has improved in that respect as well, of looking at what other means there are or ways of leveraging those funds or reinvesting them in other aspects, whether that's in equities, whether that's in other other real estate options, in this case, nowadays crypto or whatever it may be, or in their own business, growing their business. So, there's this mentality of, now of, constantly refinancing, it's tax, refinancing and pulling that equity. People are realizing that it's tax-free money, that they're accessing this equity. So instead of paying it off completely, pulling out that few $100,000 to reinvest elsewhere, paying, right now, still variable rates at 1.5%, paying 1.5% for that money to reinvest even in the market or elsewhere, where you're getting a higher rate of return. I mean, it's that extra payment of maybe $800 to access a few $100,000 now to reinvest elsewhere, where you're getting a higher spread or a higher return. It becomes kind of a lot of mentality of why pay it off. But then there's also a huge a big subset of the population that have the mentality of, being very debt averse and paying that off and just paying it down to zero. And there's really, there's really two big trains of thought. And a lot of it comes down to personal psychology and not necessarily, a lot of people understand that they can leverage that at, a lower interest rate and reinvest elsewhere, but it's that psychology, that personal psychology of getting it to zero because they are so debt averse and just hate seeing that number and hate having that monthly payment, knowing though that they could be reinvesting elsewhere, but it's just kind of that looming payment over their head.
Yeah. And we'll see sometimes there's clients that, will have 300,000 saved. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on with my cream today. It's like coating my throat to the point where I can't, it feels like I got some in my throat all the time. There are people as well that will save, $300,000, $400,000, and that's, 50% down payment, and they still want to save more. It's like, well, we want to have as little mortgage as possible. It's like, I understand that, but you can literally borrow it. And instead of putting money into savings, just put it towards the mortgage. You're going to come out way further ahead, in the next 5 years or so. The thing I found interesting too, Dave, and I think one of our listeners asked the question, is there that much money in Ottawa? The incomes are there, as we've talked about on a few shows recently. The average household income in Ottawa is around $106,000. So if you're already a homeowner and your home has gone up, let's say 50% in the last couple of years, and you're now sitting on, let's say, an additional $500,000 in equity. If you're using that money to invest in a real estate property, let's say a $450,000 townhome, right, as an investment, your income itself, along with the rental income from that property you're buying, will pretty much qualify you. So the biggest barrier really to entry for most first-time home buyers is the down payment. So for these existing homeowners, and that's why I think we're seeing a shift to, there being more rentals available. Existing homeowners have the income, they have the equity to put on these properties, and they're able to qualify. So they're actually also at times the ones competing with potential first-time home buyers to get into those starter homes, right? Because they have the equity and they have the income to do it. So instead of putting, minimum down payment of 5%, they can actually put in 300,000 from their existing equity, whether through a line of credit or a refinance or what have you. And then they're able to put down, 50 to 60% on that investment property, as opposed to a first-time home buyer is trying to get in there with, maybe their 20, 25,000 that they've been saving. So it is, people are kind of competing obviously against each other in these home buying experiences, but there might be an existing homeowner that's literally competing against a first-time buyer in most cases, right? Because of that equity and that ability to qualify.
I think that brings up a really good point, is that people have a mentality as well of saving up for that 20% down, first-time home buyers or, buyers in general. I'm going to say for their first home, I need to save up 20%. I don't want to pay CMHC. I don't want to pay that premium. Well, right. Over that period of time for you to save up, that home is appreciated. You're chasing the pricing. The price keeps going up. So you're always kind of chasing that trailing price to get that 20%. And so what Paul just mentioned of those homeowners where their value has gone up and they're accessing the equity to maybe buy an investment property. What people need to realize is, you're best to get in. The quicker you can get in and buy a home and take advantage of appreciation, the better. Don't wait for that 20%. Mm-hmm. Get that, buy with 5% down, pay that premium, let the market do the work for you. And that, 10,000, 15,000 in a CMHC premium or what have you is going to be peanuts compared to the increase in value of the home. I was sharing a photo of, came up on my, Facebook always reminds you of stuff that happened, X years ago.
Yeah.
And
one of their best features.
Yeah, 100%. So 4 years ago, I sold my townhome in Barrhaven. It was my first home that I bought. Mm-hmm. When I bought it, that was my first townhome in Barrhaven. I lived there, and then I converted it to a rental when I moved out. I sold it in 2018 to reinvest into another property. I sold it. I was the most expensive sale because I'd fully renovated it and all that. I was the most expensive sale on the street for an end unit, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath townhome for it was $330,000. I sent it to my buddy who was the realtor on it, who helped me sell it. It's doubled in value in 4 years. And I was just joking to him that, about the, kind of the home price, increase over the last 4 years. But I bring that up to kind of just illustrate as well. Obviously the market's been crazy this past few years, and it's not always going to be such a crazy high increase in value. However, the person that, would have been chasing to save up that 20% to buy it at 330 because they didn't want to pay that CMHC premium. Mm-hmm. If they had bought it at 5% down, they would have made, they would have doubled their value of the home, $300,000. So paying that, maybe that $7,500 in premium is peanuts compared to what that home price would have gone up. And the same being now, like PPS prices are more expensive, housing prices are more now, and that townhome, you're probably paying $600 to $650 for it. However, getting into it with as little down as possible, if that is what you're able to afford now, get in, because the home values are going to continue to go up, and you can then take advantage of it. And as they go up, you can, maybe refinance, pull out that equity to buy another property, or then sell and use that equity for another. But as an investor, what I look at is buying a home that is a little rundown, that needs work, do the renovations to it, increase the value of it, refinance it, pull out that equity to buy another property. Mm-hmm. I'm not saving up that 20% after tax dollars every time. And I think there's a misconception of that as well, that all of these investors and people buying rental properties are just money's falling from the trees for them, or that they're just, in these crazy high incomes. No, they bought, for myself, I bought a home at the time, it was $227,000. I bought it, you were actually my banker on it, Paul. You did my mortgage on it. I bought it at 5% down, and it increased in value. And I sold it 330. I did renovations to it, and pulled that equity, and I bought another place. But continuously, what I've done since then is really just bought, renovated, refinanced, and purchased another. And it's not. And those are that money that you're refinancing is also you're not paying taxes on it. You're paying tax on the sale of that rental property after the fact. So I think it's more of a strategy. And that kind of goes back to that, ride or die mortgage of it running, kind of maintaining a mortgage. Well, you can keep refinancing those rental properties or your primary residence and pulling out equity to buy other property, where if you're pulling out $100,000 tax-free, from equity, that's the same as if you were making 200,000. You'd have to make 200,000 in off a salary in order to save that 100,000 with no other expenses.
And the mortgage payment too. Like you can really, so two things to say. One, on that example used for your house, 20% down at 330, they're going to need 66 grand. 3 years later, now they need 120 plus grand to buy that same house because of the increase in value. So like you said, it's like you have to, every few years, you're going to have to increase your savings by, 25, 30, even 100% at times, because the value of the home is going to continue to go up. So you're never, your savings likely won't outpace the increase in value of the home that you're trying to save for. So like, it's better to buy now. And even when you buy a home, like, we use the example, that first home I bought, going back to my own personal experience, I bought it at 212 and I sold it for 217 7 years later. But because every month you're making that, $1,000, $1,500 payment, you're not only paying down the principal, but the value of the home is also increasing. So, if you're starting here with your mortgage and the home value continues to increase and your mortgage continues to go down. So all of that delta in between is your money, right? Like it is truly, whether you sell the house or you refinance it down the road, that money is going back into your pocket. So any money you're making towards a mortgage payment, you're not just throwing that away, right? Especially with rates where they are at now. You're talking variable rates at 1.5%. You could be making a $2,000 payment, and 1,700 of that is going to principal. Like you're putting a lot of money in your own pocket for future use, whether that be through refinancing to buy another property, or even if you just sell your home down the road and you're getting all that money back, you're not throwing that money away, right? So it's important to like, if you're going to be putting money into savings to buy a home, you might as well buy a home and keep putting that money into savings in the form of a mortgage payment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's, I think, whenever I'm talking to anybody that's first-time home buyer, talking about, well, I'm going to wait and save, and they have substantial savings. My first conversation, the first thing I bring up is let's look at your pre-approval now. Let's look at where you qualify now based on what you have for savings to provide context for that roadmap. Again, you could still wait and buy, but let's look at what you can afford now based on what you have. You have 30,000 saved. Great. Let's, it's a great amount. Let's look at what you can qualify now and move that up. Well, there's no reason to wait that year or two to save, like you said, that 120 where the values keep going up and you kind of just keep chasing the rabbit. Yeah. But again, it's kind of that psychology for people as well. And going back to people not wanting a mortgage, it's also that psychology of not wanting to pay those insurance premiums. There's a cost to like waiting, or a cost to not doing that as well. So it's something to consider as you're looking at, what your path to home ownership is, if that is your goal, or to investing, and whether that's investing in the real estate, investing in other markets, investing in your own business or a startup business, whatever it may be, leveraging different avenues in order to attain that. But well, Paul, I think we've rambled enough for today so far. Should we get into the mood boost?
Yeah. Yep. I got 4. I had to actually verify one with Steven because I wasn't sure if I'd used it last week. It seems the good ones always come out Tuesday, right when we release the show. So they feel old now, but they're still delicious. Still great. All right, I got 4 today. Number 1, mood boost. How do you reach out to a fish that you haven't seen in a while? Just drop them a line.
Wow.
Like the card throw. The card throw is very Jimmy Kimmel.
I was just about to say that. I was going to say, Mr. Kimmel over there. Holy smokes.
How does a cucumber become a pickle? It goes through a jarring experience.
Wow.
Number 3, how do you get a squirrel to like you? Act like you're nuts. And last but not least, my personal favorite, how do you make a good egg roll? You push it down a hill.
Those are solid. Those are solid this week. I give it. I'm a 4 for 4 on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I'm actually not going to be on next week, so I'll have to send you guys some mood boosts, or I might just leave you to your own devices and let you guys come up with some on the spot boosts.
We might need we might need you to.
I'll send you some photos. I'll send you some photos
from the Amazon.
yeah, might do that. We forgot to give a shout out to North Brew, our sponsor, coffee. North Brew, northbrew.ca. If you use the promo code podcast, you'll get 20% off your coffee orders. Big announcement coming in the next 2 weeks too. I know we've said this many times. I'm not even going to give a little prelude, but big announcement coming 2 weeks from today. Some changes happening, some exciting changes, some boosts. We're going to be back. We're here next week too, but 2 weeks, big announcement. Anything in closing, Dave? Anything you want to say to everyone listening? All of Canada, Ottawa?
No, I think we've talked enough.
Yes, I agree. We're out of here. We'll see everyone next week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And as always, yeah, we'll see you next week.
Deuces.
All right, bye.
The Ottawa Real Estate Podcast is brought to you by Referral Mortgages, Blue Panda Realty, and Stephen Hopkins Video. Thanks for tuning in, and please remember to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you.